All right, next up in our PWA series, I want to talk about online, offline, and somewhere in between. So there is an event that we can listen for online. There's an event that we can listen for called offline. But those events happen when the browser is absolutely certain, hey, I've lost my Wi-Fi connection. I've lost my connection to my network. It doesn't really tell us if we've lost the connection to the server, if something has gone wrong with reaching out to the server, or it doesn't tell us if the connection is so slow that, well, I tried to get this thing, but it's timing out. So we're going to look at the different ways that we can check for online, offline, as well as leveraging the power of our service worker to figure this out for us. So right now, what I'm doing in this page is I'm listening for a property inside the navigator object called isOnline. If that property exists, I can check its value for true or false. That's going to tell me that most likely I'm online or offline. The fact that the page is loaded is a good indicator, but it could be a cached copy that we're getting. So we're going to assume at this point, yes, okay, when the page loads, if this property is good, we're probably online. So in my web page, I have a span here where I'm going to write out that message. Probably online, probably offline. I'm definitely online or offline, or I've confirmed the fact that I am online or offline using my service worker. I've got a paragraph here, and I'm going to be adding images into here. I have an image folder, and I've got these three images, board, fail, and I1. Those three images, I'm going to randomly put those in here when I click on the body. And then if I don't have one of those, so in my script here, I've got an array that has those three images. I've also got this other one called missing image. This one is going to fail every time. It doesn't exist. I've put that in there just to simulate, okay, something went wrong with loading an image. So let's take a look at this working. When I click, every time I click, I randomly get one of those four images, and sometimes this will happen. So it tried to retrieve that image. It got a 404 error, and this is what I write out when that happens. So every time I click, I'm randomly selecting one of these four images, but sometimes it's going to fail. And this is just to simulate the possibility of failure when you're trying to get something. Okay, here's the initial property that I was talking about, the online property. If that exists inside my navigator object, then I'm going to check its value. This is going to be a Boolean to tell me true or false, and I'm saving that inside of app.isOnline. In my init function, this is the one that runs when the page loads. Let me shrink all these down here. So DOM content loaded, page is loaded. I'm going to call this init function to start things running. I'm going to write out inside my isOnOff span, that's this one right here, I'm going to write out the value basically of this property. And this is my indication of, I'm probably online, I'm probably offline. So app.probably is my function down here. And I just check the value of this. If it's true, I'm going to write this out. If it's false, I'm going to write this out. That's all that I'm doing at this point. So that's written on the page. Then I'm going to listen for online and offline. Those are the events on the window object that tell me that absolutely yes, when the online event fires, it means I've gained a connection to the network. When offline fires, I've lost the connection to the network. Now offline, that absolutely tells me that I've lost the connection. I can't do anything. Online, however, I could have the connection to my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi might be connecting to my network, but it doesn't mean that I necessarily have an internet connection or a connection to my server. And that's why when these things happen, there's a good chance that you are online or offline, but it's not guaranteed. Here's my function to load my image when I click. I'll take a look at that one quickly. And I don't have all the code here. This is just sort of the setup code. I will be writing some code to show you guys. Okay, so I'm randomly picking from my images array one of those images. I'm creating a new image element. I'm clearing out the paragraph. Create a new image element. If the load event happens, that means I was able to go and fetch the image from the server, bring it back, so I can put it on the page. If this happens, absolutely, I've got to be online if I was able to do that, or my service worker is sending me back a cached copy of it. If it fails, this is the message that I was writing out. Could not load an image. I don't know what this error is necessarily, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my service worker to find out if I do have a real connection, if it was not something else. At this point, I'm going to start to use the service worker. So, how do I do that? Well, I have inside my init function here, after these other event listeners, I'm checking to see if there is support for service worker in the navigator object. If there is, I'm registering it. Now, if you don't know how service workers operate, if you have never seen this code before, I have an entire playlist on service workers, which will give you all the details about that. You can see the link right above there. So please go and watch that if there's anything that you're not sure about here. And once I've registered the service worker, I'm going to add a message listener. So messaging is something you can do, which is also in that service worker playlist. When you want to send data back and forth between your web page and your service worker, this is the listener for, hey, I've just received it. We're going to have a message listener in our service worker too, so I can send data back and forth between the two of them. I will get an event object that comes with the message event. So this event object is going to have inside of it a property called data, and that will be the actual object itself that's coming from the service worker. So that's what I'm writing out here. Now, in my service worker that I've just registered here, there's an install event, an activate event, a message event, and a fetch event. Those are the 4 event listeners that you're going to deal with in service workers. You can see I'm not doing anything with the install or the activate. Skip waiting I don't need to have. Again, service worker playlist to learn more about that. In my message event, here's my event that's coming in. This is the message object. It has a property called data. And inside that, this can be any object that I want to create whatsoever. I'm saying if I get a message from the web page and this data object has a property inside of it called check online, this is like an instruction to my service worker. Hey, you know what? I need you to figure out if you are actually online right now. So we're going to send a test fetch call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to request this image right here. So I could request anything at all, but I'm going to make a head request, which is just the headers for this file. And the reason I'm using this one is I know for a fact that this one is there. I know that the name is correct. I know the file is going to be there. So this should work. If I'm online and I have a decent connection, this should work. So here's the request. This is the URL. I know for a fact that that image exists. I'm going to make a head, so it's a really, really small request. And if this works right here, I can do a fetch call for this object. And if it works, I get a response object back. That response object, if it works, I have to be connected. There's no other way about this. And if it fails, so I get an error coming back, well, if this thing fails, it either timed out and if it did time out, that means that there was some sort of problem. It means, really, if this doesn't work, I'm not online. We can make that assumption at this point. So inside of here, we'll write out a message. Here we'll do the same thing. And we will not just send this. We're not going to send the headers back to the browser, but what we want to do is this is the trigger to send a message back to the browser. So we're going to use a method down here called send message. And this is a pretty standard one, except for these 3 lines right here. This is a standard, hey, I'm going to send a message to all the browsers that are connected to me right now to tell them something. I'm going to send some data object off to the browser. And I'm looking in my message to see if there's a property called isOnline. If there is, I'm going to write out the message in the console saying, yep, tell the browser whether or not we're online. This will have a true or false in it. So let's create that object right here. We're going to say return send message, and it's going to be an object. We're going to do the same thing right here. And the property that we're going to add is isOnline. And this is going to be true. This is going to be false to say, hey, yeah, you are online, or no, you're not online. We can assume it at this point. Now this return is going to come back up here to the fetch. And what we need to do inside of here is we're going to tell this event to hang on until a message has been sent. And the way that we do that is by wrapping all of this inside of a method that you get in service workers called waitUntil. We want to make sure that one of these messages was actually sent back. So we're going to say wait until we get a return value from this fetch call. And that's the send message. Down here, the send message, when this is done, it'll send back a return. This returns from the promise, and we get the response coming back into here. So we know at this point that a message has been sent back to the browser. Okay, so we need to call this. We need to actually send the message with something called check online, because that is our trigger. Inside of our message, we're going to look to see, hey, inside the data, is there something called check online? So we need to send that. And we're going to do that in here when the image failed. So right here. To send a message, not just receive one, but to send one, we will call navigator.serviceworker.controller post message. And this is all built in. So the navigator object has a service worker object. The controller, that's the thing that's able to send the messages. So we send post message, and we can put any object in here that we want. Unlike fetch, we don't have to actually call the JSON parse or stringify method. We can just pass the object itself, and that gets handled. So check online, and just for the hell of it, we'll send the current status. If we wanted to use that, we could do that. It really doesn't matter what we put here. This is the trigger that we're looking for, this property check online. Right here. If that exists, that's when we do the test. But if you want to pass it in, if there was something else that you wanted to do based on that status, we could send it like that as well. Okay, so when it fails, this is going to pass the message. When we see this on the page, we know that we're sending a message off to the service worker. The service worker at that point receives this message, and it's going to try to do a fetch. It could work, it could fail. Either way, we should send a message back to the browser. So this object or this object, with the true or false, that's coming back to our browser, and that's going to be back up here inside of right here. So we'll be able to see that coming out right here. All right, let's refresh, just make sure we've got the latest version of everything. I do have in the application tab under service worker, I do have update on reload. So anytime I make changes to the service worker, when I refresh my page, I'm getting the latest copy of the service worker as well as this page. So we click, okay, that one worked. We click, it worked, works. Eventually we will get a failure. We'll get the 404 message. There we go. So there's the 404. We tried to get this one, couldn't get it. The image didn't exist. We got a 404, so that's an error. Service worker received this. Hey, we need you to check if we're online. Right now, I think that I am online. Able to get the test image headers? Yes, so that worked. So we're going to tell the browser that we are online, and then in app.js, in our main browser script, we're getting this to say that we are currently online. So we're going to write that out. We're going to put something inside of here saying that we are definitely online. And since we are, we're going to try to load another image just automatically. Step 1, we're going to come over here and check for that property. The one that's coming back from the service worker. If that is inside of our data, this data property right here, so if it contains the property is online, that's our trigger to know, hey, okay, we just tested something and we're getting a message back from the service worker to say that right now we are or are not online. So we're going to update our isOnline property with the value that is coming back from the service worker, like that. And then we're going to write that out on the page. So let's get our span. I think that was the class name. Yeah, so in that span, we're going to write out a different message here. So we're going to write out that we confirmed that we were online or offline. So that will write out the message. It'll write inside that span, confirmed, instead of what we had before, the probably online. So there we go, failed, and now there's the confirmed online. So we failed to get the image. We wrote out here we couldn't load it. We called the service worker. We said, please check if we're online. We were able to get the headers, tell the browser that we're online. If we are, then we're going to write confirmed online. Now, it's possible that we're not online. So if I go over to the network tab, I can actually come down here and set it to offline. And you can see, when I switched it to offline, that triggered our offline event on the window object. So it did do this. Now, any one of our images should fail, and we are confirmed to be offline. So every time I click, you can see I'm getting 404 errors. That sends it to the service worker. Service worker tries and sends back false. False. Every time I do this, I'm going to get false. You're not currently online. And we can fix that. We're confirmed online, and it's working again. Okay, so the last step here, if we are really online, but we got to this point, it means we tried to get an image, it failed. We asked the service worker said that we are online. Okay, I'm going to try again. I'm going to try to get another random image. So how do we trigger getting those random images? It was this. When you click on the body, that's the trigger for trying to load another random image. So we're going to call that. We're going to trigger that event listener. We're only going to do it if we are online. So if you are definitely online, I don't want to try this if I'm definitely offline, because that's just going to get us into this complete infinite loop where it's failing and trying and failing and trying and failing and trying. We don't want that. So we are going to try again. And we're just going to call the click method on the body object. That will trigger the event listener for click. So we're probably online. The page is loaded. We click. That image worked. Click again. It worked. Click again. Yeah, we're good. We're good. There we go. So that was really, really fast, but it did fail. We sent the service worker the request. Hey, can you figure out if we're online? We were able to get the headers. Tell the browser we're online. The browser, app.js, got this back saying, yep, you are. So the try to load another image, that clicked again for us automatically. And every time it gets a 404, it will automatically make another request for another image. So every time it fails, we try again. And that's it. That's sort of all the aspects of online, offline. We've got the online-offline event listeners. We've got that initial status for online. Notice the capital L. And then we have the ability, at any point, I'm doing it here when I fail to load an image, but you can use anything as the trigger to check. You could even have a set timeout on the web page that, once every 10 minutes, I'm going to check. I'm going to get the service worker to test and see if I'm actually online. And then in the service worker, we do something like this, a really tiny request. So just a few bytes to know, okay, did I get the headers back? If I did, okay, that's good enough for me. That means that I'm currently online. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. I'll answer as many as I have time for. And as always, thanks for watching.